Welcome to Shadow. Hey everyone, how are you doing? Monica Bodierski here, artist and author of the Shadowland Tarot and the House of Shadows, Lenormand, and a new oracle coming up very shortly. There's a slight delay. I think I mentioned that before, but it is coming out mid to late October. Don't despair. Unfortunately, COVID has just caused all sorts of issues that were kind of unforeseeable, just generally delays. So, this video is a little different, as you can see, because, well, I'm drawing here, and I thought, why not have a story time Halloween edition? I love stories as soon as we start to hit anything resembling sweater weather here in the Northern Hemisphere, and we suddenly find ourselves in very cool weather here. So I thought maybe it's time to break out a story or two to get us in the mood for the spooky season. Who am I kidding? Spooky season is every minute of every day in my life, all year long, okay? I started off as a spooky kid. I'm highly intuitive. I lived in a haunted house, and I've had so many experiences. And yes, I'm imaginative, which sometimes kind of makes people feel like it might not be that credible. But the fact is, I just happen to be creative and highly intuitive. There you go. So, I'd like to share some stories while you watch me drawing some of the cards for the latest deck I'm working on, which was one that has been requested for a while because every edition of my House of Shadows self-published Oracle deck, by the way, it's self-published. The Shadowland Tarot is by Red Feather, Mind, Body, and Spirit. That is my publisher. So yes, I do both. Anyway, people have been asking about the expansion cards in each edition because there's 6 additional cards. So because they're limited edition, I can't ever publish them in that format. But you know what? I can put them all together, make some new spooky drawings, and have a whole new fun deck. And since I just can't stop drawing spooky little pen and ink things, I figured, why not? So, my story. What is my story about? Well, it is one of many stories I have, and this one is specifically about Halloween. And it's a Halloween tale that isn't, well, I don't know how horrifying it is, but I will set the mood for you, okay? Well, when my partner and I first got married, we were living in a very small downtown apartment, also naturally really haunted. It was a building that was from the early 1900s, late 1800s even, and right downtown. So I have this naive idea that every time I leave and move to a new location, some of those ghosts won't follow. But then, like many people, when I realized I'm actually the one who's haunted, I realized that when we moved to this house, it might also... by the way, the house is very small. It's a very cute little place, and it is only about 10 minutes, 15 minutes north of downtown, and it's still part of Toronto in the greater downtown area, not the suburbs. But it was really a thrill for us to move into this little house because... well, Halloween. And when you're in an apartment, you don't always get kids knocking on the door. As a matter of fact, we never did. I decorated. I loved Halloween. I love the kitschiness of it all. Yes, and I'm a witch practitioner. I say embrace those stereotypes. We know they're not true. Get over yourselves, people. So, I am also adding to the education, by the way, of earth-based spirituality before you get judgy about me liking kitsch. But you know what? I realized early on that having really fun, spooky times alleviates the stress of those other really spooky times that you can't always control. And you're expressing yourself this way, and it's kind of a safe exploration. So, of course, I love Halloween and Halloween decorations. Thunder, lightning, all those good things, gothic horror stories, not really splatter films and jump scares, but I digress. So we didn't have kids coming to the apartment, and I felt a little down about that. So we moved into this space over 20 years ago. But one of the first things my partner and I did was, of course, get pumpkins and decorate the front window in a pretty horrifying style. And put on makeup because I love doing Hollywood style makeup. Okay, I'm not going to compete in any of these shows, but I wasn't too bad at it, let's just say. It certainly wasn't a store-bought costume or a rubber mask. And we thought that we'd hand out candies, and we had a great time that Halloween. But every now and then, when you understand that that time of the year the veil is very thin, and you also celebrate ancestors and spirits of the dead, you can really get such a sense that the veil, as I said, is so incredibly thin. You can see through it. You can feel ungrounded in a way. You can almost feel that you're in that liminal space of neither here nor there. So incredibly integrated to that weird in between, that you can see and experience things you don't normally, even if you are a sensitive person. So kids came trick-or-treating, and all was good, and it was a nice crowd, you know what I mean? Little kids came up, so we tried to tone it down because we did probably give a few, at least a good couple years on the old psychiatrist couch. But we weren't jumping out at anyone. It was just the makeup was a little spooky. But I think, you know what, it's even creepier when you have someone sounding really sweet and friendly and they look like death. Yeah, took me a moment to figure that out. But, and we also got the disgruntled teens who, basically are 6'4" and demand everything. We do live in a big city. All was going really well, though, and we really enjoyed it. And we had, of course, It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown playing in the background because, well, why wouldn't you? We had all our favorite Halloween shows going. And, for those of you who know this tradition, you'll know that often it kind of blows out fairly quickly. All the little kids come earliest because they got to get to bed, especially on school nights. And, of course, there's stragglers, but then it kind of goes to, well, perfectly quiet. So I was standing in the front door, looking out onto the street, trying to gauge whether there were still any kids that were going to pop by. And I looked up and I looked down, and I didn't see any kids. And I thought, okay, well, I guess it's time to turn the porch light off, blow the pumpkin candle out that we had carved for the porch, turn off that light, put the candy bowl away, yank out some of our own fillings with those candies, especially the stale ones. And I was looking down, and I was just sort of closing the wooden door. We have screen doors up here, and we also have wooden doors. And so I was closing the wooden door, and as I turned, I was closing the door out of the corner of my eye. Right after I finished closing, I looked out. There are small windows in that door, painted purple, by the way, because when you see purple doors, you know a witch lives there. And as I glanced out, I saw a little boy who was probably about 7 years old, I would guess. It's hard sometimes because some kids are very tall and they're only like 5, and other kids are a bit shorter and they're already 9, you know what I mean? But my guess would be this little boy was about 7. He had on what looked like a little yellow raincoat, and I didn't see a costume. he was running up our driveway and to the side of the house, and he had what looked like a little pumpkin, like a little plastic pumpkin. And he was running full tilt, and I could see his hair. I couldn't really tell if it was light or dark because it was already pitch dark out, even though we have street lights. And I went, oh, like I didn't even question that. I went, oh my goodness, why he's coming around the back? And I went around to the back door, and I opened the door, and there was no little boy. And I went, oh, okay. He went back up to the front. Now we have a very small house. That's about 10 steps. Okay, for me, it actually is smaller than our apartment was. So I went running to the front door, opened the front door, stepped out onto the porch, and I looked up and down our driveway, and I didn't see him. And I went, oh, poor little guy, I missed him. And I went down the front stairs, and our drive is short to the sidewalk. And I looked up and down the street, and I looked around. There was nobody. There was nobody. And that all happened in the span of a few seconds. And really, it was at that moment that I realized that that was a spirit. It was a spirit. You'd think someone who's seen spirit their whole life would realize that, but sometimes they do look very real, and you just catch a glimpse and you don't even question that it may not be a real person or child. So I kind of went back inside, and I thought, oh, this probably was the spirit of a child who passed away on or close to Halloween, who didn't get the opportunity to go trick-or-treating, and he's still out there trick-or-treating. And, I put down a few candies outside and just said, wherever you are, little guy, I hope you're okay. I hope you're having fun. He seemed to be enjoying himself. And happy Halloween to you. So, that was it. We went back to watching our movies and other things, but I've never forgotten that little boy. And every Halloween, I still think of him and put out a couple of candies and say a few good words and say, you just keep trick-or-treating if that was a happy moment. I don't believe he was trapped or stuck. I think he was just doing what he loved to do best. So there you have it, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this little Halloween story time. Please join me again because you know what? I really do like to draw and then add my stories. So I'm going to give that a try for a little bit. And of course, give you some tarot and divination tips. But for now, Monica Bodierski signing off and wishing you all a spooky day. Bye-bye.